Mark Twain saw the beauty of the river. He saw the majesty of the river. He saw it both when it was in rage and flood and calm and drought. And the way he wrote about the river, it brought the river alive to so many people. It's said that one of the most common requested words by foreigners is Mississippi and what it's all about because of the great Mark Twain. He really brought this whole river and its stories alive to people. He caused people to want to understand what this river is about and travel the waterway.
Welcome to our presentation today on American Queen. We are thrilled to have our wonderful representative from American Queen with us today. So many of you have been in the office when I've done presentations for us. I am thrilled to have an expert with me today. Elizabeth from American Queen is on, and she's going to be joining us with all kinds of information. I am curious, does everyone know how to use your chat, the chat feature on the Zoom? So if you do me a favor and just kind of go over and type a little message saying hello or anything that you want to kind of put in there. And what we're going to do is we do have you muted during the event today, but you can, if you have any questions or anything, we're monitoring that chat, and that's where I'd love for you to kind of put those questions. And I see a lot of you figuring out, hello, it's great to see so many people on here. I know I see Sharon Kupiak, who I just got back from Australia, New Zealand in March with. So it's great to see all these people that we recognize. And so what we are going to do is jump right into a little bit about this. So if I had come to you guys about a year ago and said that we were going to do a call on this thing called Zoom, I have a feeling people would have thought I was crazy. Let's get through this real quick. But each day we actually start off, we are still not officially working in the office. We are still working remotely. So every day, this is some of the staff that you might call in and hear. This is our friendship family, right? All of our people, minus Anne. I'm sorry, she had the day off that day. But in the different sections, you see Donna up in the corner here, and of course Barbara and Heidi, who all work in the ship shop together. And so what we found is one of those great unintended consequences of the pandemic is that a lot of us are having to do things outside of our comfort zone. And what do I mean by that? I mean just the fact that so many of us are actually on a Zoom call, right, today, really speaks volumes about what that's all about. So we are excited to be able to share today's information with you all about American Queen. And what I'd love to do is kind of jump right into the presentation and have Liz tell you a little bit. So we've gotten to know each other for about a little over a year and a half coming up in, I believe, just the end of this month. And what I love about Liz is she's been in the industry for quite a long time, and she actually has had experiences from all different parts of travel. Like many of you on this call, I know you travel all over the world and do different things, but she fell in love with river cruising in particular. And I want to have her just share a little bit of how she got started and how she ended up with American Queen, and what is so exciting about American Queen right now.
Okay, Britt, thank you. And thank you for the warm intro. Hello to everybody. the ship shop and everybody else, my new friends that I'm meeting today. It's great to be here. I'm really happy to be introducing you to American Queen Steamboat Company if you have not sailed with us before, because it's an absolute pleasure to be sailing in the U.S. Now, as Brett said, I've been in the industry for some time, and as things roll out, it does become interesting. I actually started in Europe on $25 a day way back in college. So with that, I graduated college, went to Europe on $25 a day, came home and said, well, I'm going to join an airline. And I joined the airlines. You may remember an Eastern Airlines or United Airlines. And then from there, I moved into ocean cruising. And I was in ocean cruising for quite a bit of time. And then I joined a part of the industry that not many people know about unless you're a travel agent. And they're organizations that travel agents join so that they can stay educated and learn about products. And I had noticed that every month we had a member meeting, and this was about 2006. And we'd had a meeting and everyone was talking about river cruises. I thought, something's coming up with these river cruises. And I was listening, and a couple of the ladies in the office and I decided to get together and go on a European river cruise. So we had scheduled that. And I also somehow got a call from a friend who said, hey, do you know a particular European river cruise is hiring? And I said, oh, okay. So I interviewed with a European river cruise the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Thursday I had Thanksgiving. Friday I went on a European river cruise. I came home, gave my notice, and joined a European river cruise company. And many of you probably have sailed on a European river cruise. And that's how I got started in European river cruise. Small vessels, history, education, culture, yet a lot of fun and great food. You have the freedom to come and go and dress casual and just enjoy the surroundings that you're in. You get to meet a lot of people in a smaller environment. And I really like that. So I was doing European river cruises for quite a few years. And then I went off into another direction, into tours and so forth, and found myself always keeping an eye on American river cruising. There was always these paddle wheelers. I had done a day trip, I think it was when I first joined, it may have been when I was with the I had done a day trip on a paddle wheeler down in New Orleans one year, many years prior. And it always stuck in my mind that they were going up and down the river and with the paddle wheel and the gingerbread. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be something? And then out of the blue one day, a friend in the industry said, hey, would you be interested in this? I know you really prefer cruising and the small cruising. And there it was. I just said, absolutely. And I joined American Queen Steamboat Company. And I have to say that with that, it is everything European river cruising is and more. It's our own history, our own culture. We're right here at home. There's things here that I didn't even realize that, just things you just take for granted. And I've joined and I've had such a great time. I've seen some wonderful destinations, met wonderful people. They've shared their history in these small ports. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to introduce you to it today. So that's how I got here.
Excellent. So Liz, I know right now that as people are kind of trying to figure out where they want to travel, are they going to travel? We're going to talk a little bit about that in a bit, but people are really looking at staying domestically, number one, for a couple reasons. One, we all know when we stay domestically, if you've ever traveled outside of the country, and depending on your insurance, often we need a supplemental insurance to go to these other areas. Here in the United States, all of our Medicare and things work exactly the way that we expect. So a lot of people are looking to stay there. The other part is what's beautiful about American Queen and all of the steamships that we're going to talk about, and there are 4 boats, but there's much more than that to the company. And so what I wanted to have Liz do is just kind of explain the power behind American Queen Steamboat Company and how you know that you're in great hands and that you're very, very safe when you're traveling with this. And we're going to get to that in a second. But would you talk about the organization? So if you look at your screen, you see a slide that says Hornblower Cruises and Events. Do you mind, Liz, just telling a little bit about Hornblower Holdings and how that works with American Queen?
Sure. I don't see it on the screen right now.
But let me go ahead and we'll share it with everybody if it isn't there.
Does everybody else have it?
Should be able to see it now. Yeah.
Ah, there we go. Okay, yes. As Brett was saying, we have 4 paddle wheelers. And you think, oh, a small company, and on the surface, it's a small company, but we are part of Hornblower Holdings. Hornblower Holdings is one of the largest maritime companies in the United States. And what that means is we have the strength behind us and the finances behind us to insure us at the same level as ocean liners. So when you're sailing with us, you don't have to worry that if something should happen, that the company has to pull over and they fold. We are insured at the highest level that you can be insured at. And we have a number of companies that fall under the umbrella Hornblower Holdings.
Excellent. So I know that is always something that's great, is to know kind of the strength of what's behind the company. Now, we talked a little bit about specifically the 4 ships that we were talking about. So one thing that makes river cruising to me so unique is that it's uniquely American. And I think this slide kind of shares that. So do you want to talk a little bit about the people of the American Queen Steamboat Company?
Yes, I love this slide, Brett. And the reason I love this slide is because the people you see here are truly the people on board. We fly under the U.S. flag, and our vessels are built right here in the U.S. And that's why we refer to ourselves as uniquely American. All of our employees are U.S. citizens, and many of the people you see right there, they hail from the small towns along the river. And what I really like about this is that being U.S. citizens, when we go back to sailing, which we're going to be doing in July, we're putting our own people back to work. We're building the economy. And I think what makes us different and differentiates us from anyone else on the rivers is that our employees are full-time. They're full-time employees on a full U.S. wage with full U.S. health benefits. So that means there's not a third party contracting in for your waiters or your waitresses, and then they work for 13 weeks and go someplace else. They are full-time invested employees, and they are dedicated to bringing you fine service. And I believe also, it's my personal belief, they are the reason that we get consistent reviews of excellence in food and service and entertainment, because they are dedicated full-time employees. We have the highest ratings in food service and entertainment across the boards.
So Liz, one thing that I'm always blown away about American Queen is that they consistently actually get ranked in the top 10 for entertainment. And
Yes.
That is compared to all of the large cruise lines. So you think about some of the cruise lines and what they have for resources. And so the reason is, as Liz was talking about the employees, there's one gentleman that I'm thinking of in particular that is actually a piano player. And if you've ever been on the American Queen, you know who I'm talking about. He's a fantastic gentleman. He's actually been there since before it was actually American Queen, going all the way back to the inaugural voyages of the American Queen. And we have actually had a long time history ourselves. Donna, who of course is at our ship shop, she was actually on with a group, was scheduled to be on the American Queen for its very first sailing. So she was actually in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with a group. We had another group that was on a different boat down in New Orleans, and has the American Queen, she had just been unveiled, was making her way up. Now they've done a lot with navigation and things, but she actually, the river always changes, and so she set in against the bank, which is what you do each night. They weren't watching really closely, and as the tide goes out, they loosen the rope so that you never ever stay stuck. Well, that didn't happen on this one. And poor Donna and this group ended up waiting for 5 days for the ship to get up to Pittsburgh. After 5 days, unfortunately, it didn't happen. The group had to fly back, and we did the cruise at the end of the year. But so we have actually had groups since the inception of the American Queen. So it's a long time history. And again, that American crew is something that really makes her different. So these are some of the uniqueness. So of course, one feature on this boat that on all the ships, all 4, and we're going to talk about 3 of them today, is this wonderful paddle wheeler. So you cannot go wrong, and that is actually on the American Queen a true working paddle wheel. You actually can go and visit down in the engine room on this ship, watch it. They love to tell you all about how it works. You can watch them oil it. It's attached to one of my favorite spots, which is the engine room bar. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But I think you would, the music, after the shows and everything, there's always music there at night. And I was so impressed that people didn't just go to bed. There was actually activities. And on the river itself, you have actually river laureates, which is like a historian and a river history individual. And they actually do at night presentations about navigating the river. So all kinds of fun activities, but we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get going. Liz, what I'd love to go into now is, I think for many of us on the call, there is the elephant in the room, right? Which when it comes to travel, do me a favor, if you have your chat, write, are you ready to travel right away? Are you thinking maybe in the fall? Or perhaps you're going, in 2021, I'm thinking about traveling. If you want to go ahead, if you know where the chat is, you can kind of put that in and we'll take a look at that. But what I want to talk about specifically is health and safety. Because in this time of the pandemic, let's face it, everything that we knew a week ago, 1 week later, it changes, right? How many have found that it's just like every day there's something new? So what American Queen Steamboat Company has done is they've been very proactive. They are following the CDC rules. They're looking at all of the advice that's out there, and they have actually put together a brochure that gives you the ability to go on and see exactly what they've done. Everything from pre-cruise screening. So it's really, really advanced on that. The boarding process itself. For many of us, if we've gotten on the American Queen or any of the other boats, you're talking a maximum of 400 people and as low as in the 200 range on the different vessels. So they are looking at those numbers. And one thing people are looking at is, one, it's domestic. Number two is that they're looking and saying, I want to be on trips, but I want to be with smaller numbers. And we can see where that would be. So that's part of this as well. Sanitation, right? Making sure that everything remains clean and it's healthy for us. And of course, then even the ground transportation, which is the buses that get you to and from the hotel to the boat, on all the shore excursions, they have a process and procedure for that as well. So if you go to their website, you can certainly do that, or if you contact us, we can actually send you a digital copy of the brochure, and the front of it looks just like this over here. But when you get into it, it's going to break down all the different parts of this. So pre-screening, so it gives you some of the ideas of what they're going to do for that. Now, we don't have all the answers, and they're always adapting and changing as we get more information, but this is just a quick kind of thing. The gangway, actual security, so touchless. They're no longer going to handle keys. The key going on and off. They've got a system for that. They're controlling exactly who is on and off the ship. The crew itself will actually have testing and screening ahead of time. So monitoring. One of the things that you might know if you've been on the American Queen in the past, because she is in the United States and she actually is in a port every single night, you're tying up, you simply are right there to get in touch with the medical system, but they've actually now have doctors on board, and they actually have access to telehealth before they get over and pull over. So all these different things that they are working on, and what's great is if anything should happen, you are able to actually get help right away. You're not out in the middle of an ocean. So sanitizing, they have a whole procedure, and if you go on the website, you click the link, this won't go to it, but it shows you a whole 2-page on exactly what they're doing for cleanliness. That part of it. This talks about the onboard, some of that medical resource that I was just mentioning. So it gives you all of that information as well. So then they are very unique. If you haven't been on an American Queen ship, on these river cruises, they actually have shore excursions included. It's what they call hop on, hop off. They actually have motor coaches that when you're going place to place actually trail along, and every day when you arrive, they own their own buses, so they've been cleaned, sanitized. It's the same drivers that are there, so they know you. It's really quite amazing. But they have a whole simple way of actually making sure the motor coaches are disinfected as well. So that's a little bit about how that works. I was told that the audio on the videos are not working really well. So what we're going to get into the next part is we're going to talk about what is the experience itself like. So we have actually secured several different itineraries for you on 3 different vessels. So the American Queen, their flagship, the American Empress, which does out west. It's 2 of my favorite areas. You're in Oregon and Washington, and it's all along this beautiful Columbia Gorge, and we're going to talk about that. It's called In the Footsteps of Lewis and Clark, so on the Columbia and Snake River. But for the American Queen, we have New Orleans to Memphis. We have another product. You'll see the second one on your screen. It has a little symbol. That means our staff is actually going to be on board with you, a fully escorted trip by Friendship Tours and the Ship Shop. And that also will go New Orleans to Memphis. So kind of a nice product there, and that's in May. Then we're doing the upper Mississippi. So along the Ohio to St. Louis to Pittsburgh, so a little bit different area. And we're also going to do sail from St. Louis to Minneapolis. So a lot of different areas that we have for you. What I'd love to do is have Liz kind of explain a little bit about the Queen and some of these itineraries that we just talked about.
Okay, so the American Queen. The American Queen is our flagship. She is everything that you would have in your imagination. If you've ever, whether you've seen it on the television or you may have been down in the area and you saw a paddle wheeler go by, you may have something in your mind about what it would be like inside a paddle wheeler. And she is it. She is iconic. She is nostalgic. She has Victorian opulence. And what I mean is you'll see Tiffany lamps. You have the calliope that plays. There's just a lot of things. It's like stepping back in time, but having all the comforts of today while you're sailing. So some of the distinctions, it's opulent. We do include the hotel before your voyage, and of course all your food is included. Your breakfast is included at the hotel, plus we collect your bags and we bring you over to the vessel. The American Queen, we include the beer and wine with dinner. And of course, all of our dining is regionally inspired and locally sourced. And Brett mentioned earlier about the entertainment. We don't go to bed early, especially on a vessel like the American Queen, because she does hold 417 passengers. Now, when we roll her out, I'm sure we're going to cut that probably in half. We might have 180 to 200 sailing at a time, which again, that's one of those things that's coming out of this situation that is maybe beneficial because you have more of an intimate group traveling together. So we'll have maybe 180 to 200 on, and the Broadway caliber entertainment is, we call it that because they've actually, most of our entertainers have at one time or another performed on Broadway. Okay. And we were talking about the hop-on, hop-off motor coach. Well, here you go. It follows along with our vessel as she's sailing, whatever itinerary you happen to be on. And each morning you wake up and join the motor coach. And keep in mind, the motor coach driver is also a U.S. citizen. For example, when I was in, I did Memphis to New Orleans. And every day I seemed to end up on the same motor coach with the same driver. And it's like, hey, good morning, Al. Good morning, Al. We're chit-chatting. I said, where are you from? He said, I'm from Newark, New Jersey. I'm like, hey, I'm from over the bridge. I'm from Kearney. You know, where do you live now? And we chit-chatted. So it's a very personable kind of trip interaction. We do have professional local tour guides on board because while you're in port, you actually have each port. You have the opportunity to see about 7 to 9 different venues in a day. That motor coach you see here, for those of you who maybe have a walker or you have a wheelchair, we're able to accommodate that in the bottom of the motor coach. The professional tour guide is on and will give you a narration as you're traveling around the port. And you can get off at any venue you choose to get off at. The motor coach comes around every 20 to 30 minutes. So, for example, I was in a museum and I was in for about a half an hour and I thought, oh, okay, I've had enough. I'll go out and meet, as we lovingly call her, the ho-ho. I'll go out and meet the ho-ho. And then I realized there was a second floor to the museum. And on the second floor, you know, being down in the area that we were in, it was all about the music. and there were different buttons. You had Sam Cooke, and you had gospel music, and you could listen to the music and push different buttons and get the history of the musicians that had come through. So I just said, hey, I'm going to go upstairs for another half hour. And I spent about an hour in the museum and just went back downstairs, met the motor coach, and went on to another venue. So it really is very convenient for everyone.
Liz, I know last year when I was on in July, I was actually lucky enough to be with my dad, who's 86 years old. And if you look in this little picture, there's a golf cart here. Now, sometimes when the boat comes in, number one is my dad loves to go up and down stairs. He lives in a colonial house. He goes up and down every night. But when we're on a big ship, he doesn't feel steady enough to go up and down the staircases on the big ships, right? So one thing is the Queen, because she's flat bottomed and all of the river boats are that way, they're unbelievably stable. And so he actually would go up and down the stairs all the time. And they do, of course, have an elevator on the Queen, but it was really amazing. But the reason I point this little golf cart out is sometimes it's flat like that. Other times the buses may be up a hill. And there's a gentleman who would actually meet my dad every time he'd get off, and he'd go, okay, young man, I know you need a lift. And that's exactly what would happen. He'd jump in that little cart, and they bring him right up to the hop-on, hop-off bus. So what I love about this product line is it's for any level of activity. And we're going to show you, they've got wonderful bikes and things like that, but it just is something that I think is so unique to this line. They are all about taking care of meeting the needs of the travelers. And this boat is definitely the flagship. So if you don't mind, I won't talk anymore. I'll have you keep going on the American Queen.
It's one of those things. It is iconic, and once you start talking about her, it's difficult to stop. And as you said, it is for any level of activity. So we have the American Queen. She is, what's interesting about her is on all of our paddle wheelers, the paddle wheel does help propel the vessel, but with the American Queen, steam powered engine. She's also partially powered by steam, so she is the only overnight steam paddle wheeler left in the United States, carrying passengers. And we've added some single cabins in for those who like to travel alone. Now, as I was saying before, it is everything you in the imagination. You know, the calliope plays every time you leave port. Every time you leave port, and you happen to be up there and you want to learn how to play, the lady or the gentleman will teach you how to play. Just say, hey, you know, can you teach me how to do that? And as you're leaving port, you can play and send everyone off on the next destination. We have all meals are included, and we have the beautiful dining room. It's the J&M White dining room. You see, those are 20-foot ceilings. Now, I don't know if you can see to the right, but being that it's a river cruise, to the right you have almost floor-to-ceiling windows so that you can see the river at any given point in time. Now, on the Queen, we were having two seatings for dinner, and then we have the show after each seating. And that's why we're up till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, which makes us a little bit different than the European river cruises. We may, depending on how we roll it out, there may be 3 seatings for dinner. As we learn as we go, we're going to figure that out. Now, we include an alternative dining venue on each vessel, and it is included. If you decide I just don't want to eat in the dining room tonight, you can come up here. And I believe that's the front porch that you can come in and have a meal. You decide I'm going to do it. So now we are very big on our evening activities. We have the Broadway Review, our entertainers, of course. We have the Rivellorian that comes on board. So in the evening, you'll be getting, this is the hub. This is the mother hub on the American Queen, the Grand Saloon. And as for those of you who are looking for more suite accommodations, you actually see along the sides, this is modeled after the Ford Theater, so you'll see along the sides there's box seats. Your butler will take you to your box seats if you're booking at the suite level accommodation. The Rivellorian will be there. We also have local people come in as well and give you a little bit of their history. Now this is beautiful. This is what I meant by Victorian opulence. This is the Mark Twain Library. Just look at the lamps, look at the wood floors, look at the for those of you who watch Downton Abbey, I'm sure you can see everybody meeting in this room for a cocktail before or after dinner. It's just gorgeous. And people love to gather here and talk about what they did during the day and the different places they saw. So the Queen is the only one of our vessels that has a small pool on board. There's a fitness center on our vessels, a small spa, and as we were saying before, the different levels of activities. There are bicycles on all of our steamboats. Okay, all the paddle wheelers have bicycles. So those of you who would like to just, take the day on your own and go out on a bike, you can certainly do that. Now, we get into the itineraries. It seems everybody immediately thinks of America's heartland. Okay, we're going along the Mississippi on the America's heartland. So we'll delve into this a little bit. Okay, the mighty Mississippi. I love this photograph because this is the mighty Mississippi. We sail on the upper and lower Mississippi and its tributaries. A lot of people don't know it's the second largest river in the United States. And also that it transports much of our food up and down the river as much as our supplies. I believe it's one pallet. We were talking about this, Donna, Brett, and I the other day. One pallet on the Mississippi is equal to something like 860 tractor trailers going up and down the highway, whether they're bringing grain or they're bringing food. So the mighty Mississippi plays a role in all of our lives.
So we definitely are thrilled to have the American Queen, and these are, again, the 4 different products that are there. What I want to go on to is some of the other vessels and some of the product, but before we do that, we wanted to show you all the different, because I know a lot of us know our geography, we know all about the Mississippi, but maybe we aren't as aware of some of the rivers that all flow together and come into the mighty Mississippi. So literally they sail from starting at New Orleans all the way upriver to Minnesota, and you can see all the stops along the way. Last year I was lucky enough to be able to go on the Ohio, so Cincinnati all the way down to St. Louis, but there's of course the wonderful from Chattanooga. So if you have ever wanted to know everything about the Civil War history, this area is certainly rich with all of that and really gives us an idea of how our country kind of came to be and some of the different things. At one point, Lincoln and specifically Grant, they basically said Vicksburg and the Mississippi was the key to winning the Civil War. If it was whoever controlled that, they would basically be the ones that won. So really, really interesting in some of the different parts of the river. And so Liz, I know you were going to just talk about, it's highlighting some of the different areas here. This would be the Red Wing and that kind of area. We also have, of course, Pittsburgh. We even have a product, not on this vessel, but we're going to talk in a little bit, that actually goes to Chicago. So that's one that I think is really exciting. But why don't we go into some of what they would see on the mighty Mississippi?
Okay, now, for example, the first itinerary that you highlighted was the lower Mississippi.
Yeah.
You're either sailing from Memphis to New Orleans or New Orleans to Memphis. And there's so much to see there. And that's really about the ports. I mean, as soon as you hear Memphis and you hear New Orleans, you immediately think of music. You think of Elvis Presley. You have the option to book a tour to Graceland that you're seeing here. And Vicksburg is there. And that's, as you said, Abraham Lincoln referred to that as the key to the South. Now, this is special. This is exclusive to American Queen. What you're looking at here is referred to as the White Castle. This is the Nottoway Plantation, and it's the largest antebellum South mansion still standing. It's 3 floors, 64 bedrooms, and then there's 22 columns going around the building. It is located on River Road, which basically is overlooking the beautiful Mississippi. And it's surrounded and it's nestled in all types of rose gardens and different types of old oak trees. And that is an exclusive stop to American Queen. So you get to go through there. Incredible history and incredible tours that we can go on. And as I mentioned, when you're doing that itinerary, we immediately think of music when you think of New Orleans, Bourbon Street, New Orleans, a lot of fun. But let's not forget, I believe the next shot coming up, that New Orleans is also the home to the World War II museum. There's a lot of history here. So for those of you who are going for history, we have the music, incredible food. Don't forget the different types of food that come into play. When you're on the
the World War II Museum, for those that don't know, is probably one of the best in the entire world. If you know the Higgins boat, those are those boats that they landed in all of D-Day and all throughout. They were actually made in just outside of New Orleans. Eisenhower said if it wasn't for that boat, we wouldn't have won the war. And he basically, Mr. Higgins, who had done it, so when they were trying to pick where we would do this amazing World War II museum, that's how it ended up in New Orleans. That itself is worth a whole day. It's really amazing. But one thing that Donna and Barb have done with the ship shop is whenever you go on one of our itineraries, you do have a tour of the city that is included. Now, quite often, we also do a little bit later flight on the last day and try to get you another tour in the city that you might be in as well. So that's one feature that you do at least get a feel, where a lot of times you cruise and you go into a place and you never see it. That's not the case with these tours. You will actually have a chance to not only the tours that you go to on the ship, but also where we're staying.
Right. And what you were just looking at there was the small town of Hannibal, because when you're on the upper Mississippi, everybody thinks of Mark Twain, because that is, it is all about Mark Twain on the Mississippi and all the stories that he wrote. This was his hometown. This was Hannibal, and it inspired many of his stories. So you'll actually get to walk through there. And just a reminder, when you're on a river cruise, yes, you have the motor coach that takes you to the excursions that are all included. But also you have the opportunity in some ports to walk through the town and then walk back down to the vessel. So you have the freedom, and these small towns are very charming. Okay. So, and of course, in the area that you're in, you have the opportunity to see some of the bayous, the Cajun and Creole influences here. So this would actually be on the upper Mississippi as well. I just want to say something before we move on. Oh, that's good. No, that's good, because the upper Mississippi, the lower Mississippi, Memphis to New Orleans, it's a lot about being in port. When you get to the upper Mississippi, it's just as interesting along the rivers as it is in port. Along the river on the upper Mississippi, you have the small charming towns, and you'll have a lot of music as well. But you'll also have along the river, I think there's something like 360 species of ships and not ships, birds, 360 species of birds, and then something like 280 different species of fish in the river, and then there's reptiles. So you have just as much to learn about, and the Riverlorian will talk about that as you're sailing. So the upper Mississippi is both about being on the river and experiencing the various ports.
And so it is one of the most beautiful places, going up and down each part of the river. The lower is completely different feel than the middle and the upper. And so we have not only, of course, the Mississippi, but we have a wonderful product going out west. I was telling you about the Columbia and Snake Rivers. This is called In the Footsteps of Lewis and Clark. You can do this either starting off more on the east going west. So if you were to start in Spokane, Washington, you would end in Vancouver, Washington, and it's an unbelievable itinerary, or you can do it the opposite way. And so I'm going to have Liz just quickly go through a little bit of what that experience. Number one is the river is so grand and big. What you can see is the thing that always amazes me. But I know that you have a lot of information about this that we'll go ahead and share.
Yeah, and you can chime in at any time, because I know this is one of your favorites. Okay, now we're actually sailing the state of Washington, and you'll see a common theme with all of our itineraries is that it's about the history, it's about culture, it's about the fantastic food, different things in the area that are significant to the United States. But again, no passports. Your Medicare is good here at town. You can phone home at any time. So you're just in the state of Washington. And this is actually the Columbia Gorge. And this is a beautiful photo of the Columbia Gorge. I think it's you're sailing into Stevenson. This is a view of the Columbia Gorge. It's the Pacific Northwest. And I like this slide. It seems a little technical in that it's a map, and I love maps, of course. Vancouver, Washington to Clarkston, Washington. It actually shows you the different areas and the different things that you will be doing. It's a little more active too, because you have excursions that are included, but you also have optionals that you can purchase if there's something a little further out that you would like to do. It's following the footsteps of Lewis and Clark. It's going back to 1805. And then you're sailing and you're going to see beautiful wineries along the way. It's some of the most breathtaking scenery right here at home in the United States. You'll see the wineries. You actually see in the center bottom there Multnomah Falls. That's one of the optional excursions, but you're also going to be traversing locks. Just as when you're on a European river cruise, we do transport through locks. So there's a lot of different beauty here. Again, this is the gorge, Columbia Gorge. This is Multnomah Falls. And there's two ways to say it, Multnomah Falls or Multnomah Falls. It stands 611 feet high, and I think it's 5 or 6 tiers of waterfalls. And right in the center, you see the bridge, and everybody goes up to the bridge to take the beautiful photographs. This is one of your optional excursions on board, which you can actually have Brett and Donna and their team take care of for you before you depart. Now, for those of you who are photographers or you like your wine, here's your wineries. This whole itinerary is a photographer's dream. There's a few wineries along the way that you can see. You can see the falls. And this is one of my favorites because this is our very charming American Empress traversing the locks at Dow's Dam.
So let's talk a little bit about the Empress. You know, what makes this trip unique is you're going to these places where you have wonderful history. As you can see, the views are spectacular, but we wanted to have an experience that's a little bit more intimate. So the Empress, actually, why don't you go ahead and just share a little bit about her stats and something unique about the staterooms on this ship in particular.
Okay. Now, the American Empress only holds 221 guests, but what's unique about her, she's all outside staterooms, all Riverview staterooms. There are no insides. And what's very charming is you enter your stateroom from the outside. When you're on a paddle wheeler, you are strolling the decks. You're sitting on the rocking chairs with the swings, and you enter your staterooms from the outside. So she is a beautiful vessel. Every one of our vessels has its own ambiance and its own personality. Okay, so you want to move to the next one? Okay. You will actually be dining in the Astoria dining room. You'll see the crystal chandeliers. It's very pristine, very charming, very pristine environment, very elegant, a sense of elegance in her public rooms. Okay. She's similar to the Queen, but not exactly the same. It's a different feel. Now, the River Grill and Bar is your alternative dining area. Usually you have to make a reservation, but it's not to worry about because we usually get everybody through twice, at least in a 1-week sailing. Okay, so you can make your reservations if you don't feel like dining in the main dining room for the evening, just a different view. Okay. And this is the hub. This is where all the entertainment takes place. The Riverlorian comes on board and gives you the history of the river. And you'll have local people from the Indian tribes come on board and give you their history as well and their culture. It's in our show lounge. And there's a show every evening.
And you get a feel she's got that wonderful charm like the Queen.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny because she has the charm of the Queen, but she's slightly different. It's a bit of a gold rush feel. I don't know if you have any of the staterooms on here. That was the paddle wheel lounge you were looking at. And the paddle wheel lounge is a gathering point with 4 different areas. There's a little bar area. There's a little 3-piece band that plays in the back. And then there's another area where you can just sit and talk. This is a better view from the outside. You could, you know, if you're sitting over the paddle wheel. But the paddle wheel lounge actually does sit over the paddle wheel. And this is a nice little gathering hall on the American Empress. Okay, see, you have your triple occupancy and the luxury suites coming in at 410 square feet. Now you can see at the back there is a door there. So you are entering from the outside. There'll be a coffee maker, a flat screen TV, bathrobe and slippers waiting for you. Just a whole different feel to her.
And of course, they're going to be following all the advice from the CDC and everything. So you can read that booklet that I was showing you on all the precautions. I know some people had put in the chat a little bit earlier. In the public rooms, you know, so right now these pictures that we have are some of the older pictures. So there'll be social distancing. So the seats in the theater, you won't be right next to each other. You know, so please feel, you know, secure that they are going to take all of that in account as well. It's just these are images that were done prior to the pandemic.
Right, and the company that we did pair off with is called Oshner Health, and it's the largest nonprofit health system out of Louisiana that covers the United States. So they are on top of everything. They're the public rooms and so forth. What you were just looking at there was the opportunity to see what it's like to sit in the river at night.
So that is the Empress, and again, she's an amazing vessel herself. The itinerary, I think, is one of the best itineraries anywhere. If you haven't had a chance to do the Pacific Northwest, it's definitely something to get out to. Between the history, the entertainment that's on board, the wonderful wine that you're exposed to. And Liz, do you want to talk about something that they're doing that's unique? I know for this year with, if anyone does want to still book for this year, we do have some opportunities. I haven't shown it to you, but Donna and Barb can help with that. And something special they're doing with drinks. So drinks are, of course, included on these products, the beer and wine, but they're doing something unique for anyone that might feel like they want to book right away.
Okay, yes, exactly. For 2020, if you have the yen to travel soon in 2020, we are actually including all beverages, not just with dinner, beer and wine with dinner, but we're also including spirits throughout the day, any time of day. And there's no extra gratuity charged every time you order a drink. So the beverage package will be included. We're normally in 2020, we normally serve beer and wine with dinner on all of our vessels. But if you wanted to purchase a beverage package, you could. But for 2020, it's all going to be included, the beverage package.
And so brand new, actually, that was built this year, it hasn't even been able to go out for her inaugural trip, is their newest ship, which is called the American Countess. And she is, we didn't show you the Duchess. The Duchess is actually a little bit more of a boutique ship. It has very large suites. It actually has 2 different levels in some of the suites. It's a pretty amazing ship. What they found is that some people love to have that Mark Twain feeling on the rivers, and others wanted a little bit more modern. So they kind of married that, right, Liz? They kind of took the best of everything, and they came out with a brand new ship that's called the American Countess. And we actually have 2 itineraries that we're offering in 2021. And one, I just love this itinerary, Chicago to St. Louis. Again, you fly into Chicago, you stay at the Hilton in Chicago, which is right near Grant Park, and also right by the water. So if you know, you have the Navy Pier, you have the wonderful museum that's right there. Now, I'm a Bears fan, so it's not far from Soldier Field, but we won't go there. But it is one of the most special cities. You do arrive early. What I love, if you ever do the architectural tour via the canals in Chicago, it is just unbelievable. But so this itinerary is Chicago to St. Louis, and then we have on St. Louis to New Orleans. So if you kind of want to do that traditional, a little bit, not just from Memphis, you actually get a little bit more extended. And so those are 2 itineraries. And if you don't mind just running through the Countess a little bit, again, she's so new, we don't even have an actual picture yet. They've got the drawing for you.
Yes, we've all been waiting for the big launch of the American Countess. She holds 245 guests. And as you said, you know, she has the gingerbread and the paddle wheel like all the other ones. But once you get behind the gingerbread, it's a different personality. So, and I agree with you on the beautiful itinerary of Chicago, starting in Chicago, because you're going to be hitting places like Peoria, which is the largest river city on the river, the Illinois River, with a lot of restaurants and 3 wineries in Havana, so charming. And you're going to be doing it from this beautiful new vessel. It's a little bit more, you see, contemporary here. Again, crystal chandeliers. You're going to have meeting rooms with a piano, the piano bar, the large windows over to your right, so that you're always
80-foot tall windows, views from there.
Yeah, so you're always looking at the window and seeing the views as you travel. Okay. That's the grand lobby. And of course, this is the dining room. Now, our theater's a bit different here. It's got a little bit more of a burlesque feel. So they've really changed it up here, because it's quite exciting, actually. And we'll have that all spaced out. Everyone's spaced out. We'll probably end up doing 2 shows here as well. And the library. This is, some people like to go, there's a lot of things to learn about and hear about. And after you listen to the River Lorraine, a lot of people like to go in the library and do some referencing. And again, the large windows.
And she's just very elegant, a little different feel. And you can get that in the staterooms as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's totally opposite from the Victorian opulence, but it pulls some of it in. It pulls some of the charm in from that. And then you get a little bit of a more of a nautical feel with these staterooms. You have the coffee makers, the flat screen TVs. This has a private balcony, the Category A Deluxe private balcony. So we have some with semi-private balconies, private balconies, and some triple occupancy here. So we're excited to roll her out, and on such unique itineraries as well. We've got a couple we've thrown in this year.
So we've talked a little bit about the ships. Ultimately, one thing that you fall into is river time, and
Yes.
there's just a slower pace. It's a great way to just watch the river go by. And that was a thing that was really amazing, is how much natural life is along the rivers. All the different, when you go from different place to different place, the topography changes consistently. How many have ever, I know you can't respond to me, but many of us have been on a ship and we go, oh, I'd really like to see the pilot house. And in so many of the modern ships, you can't go and see any of that. What they do on all the vessels is you actually can go and tour the pilot house. The map room, the River Laureate does different talks about different parts of the river, be it the animal life, the navigating, the history. So, but one of the things that I love is what these guys are doing is just sitting and enjoying the beautiful wind as the paddle wheel goes and you make your way through the river. And so we did talk a little bit about the pre-night before the cruise, that we always have the pre-night stay in whatever city. And these are two of the examples. The one on the right is actually the Hilton that I was telling you about, and it is in just a lovely part of Chicago for you to enjoy. But more than that is the value and the things that are included. So Liz, do you mind just kind of, we're close to wrapping up, but I'd love to have you just run through, because we've talked about the itineraries, we've talked about the ships, but we didn't really talk about ship life, boat life. And I know some of you that are out there, you hear me say boat and it might go, oh my God, they're ships. Well, on the Mississippi, they're actually referred to as boats, not ships. So that one, for all my Navy guys and everybody out there that's been on ships forever, that's the hardest one to get through our heads. We don't call them ship, we call it a boat. And the boat life is just amazing, starting, of course, with food.
Yes, with food. Our food is regionally inspired. As I mentioned earlier, you'll have anything that you can choose from, of course, a general menu, but then depending on where you are, it could be a Creole influence, a Cajun influence. We also offer 24-hour room service, special dietary menus, vegan, vegetarian, diabetic meals. The only thing we cannot accommodate is kosher. And as you saw, we do offer alternative venues, different dining rooms, and they're all included. So it will be inspired from the area. In 2021, we offer beer and wine with dinner, and throughout the day, we have coffee, tea, and specialty coffees and tea, and soda throughout the day. In 2020, we'll offer that special. Anybody wants to travel, probably more toward the fall, is when you'll be interested. But
what I love is they're really aware of our environment. And one of the things, if you've ever been on some different ships, you'll notice how many bottled waters they go through. And everyone's made this switch away from plastics. They've put in these touch-free, note you don't touch it, but everyone has their own water bottle, and you're actually able to fill those bottles, and that way we are not wasting all of, and they actually, on that machine, it tells you how many plastic bottles have been saved in your voyage. It's unbelievable.
I think it's 400,000.
Yeah.
That we've prevented from going to a landfill. Yeah, these are our hydration stations, and they're strategically located throughout the vessel. So you get 2 in your stateroom, so you can refill at any given time, whatever suits you.
And of course, we talked about the entertainment, but again, they are ranked in the top 10 of all the cruise lines actually in the world. And that just absolutely blows me away when you think of what they're working with compared to some of these ships that have, moving pieces of stage and robots and all that stuff. So good wholesome entertainment, big band. They actually empty out on the Queen the dance floor. They take all those chairs away and they do actual like big dances,
Yeah.
Western style and line dancing. It's really, really fun, as well as
Yeah.
movies and all kinds of things.
Yes. Yes, it's beautiful.
And of course the big Broadway caliber. Then they have special education, and of course you can't go on the Mississippi without having a little Mark Twain.
Yeah. I like to refer to that as a reenactment. I mean, they do little reenactment skits to bring you back to different periods of time in history. Then up at the right is your River Lorien, giving you the history as you're out along the rivers. And down in the right is the local, so you can learn about some local folklore. That takes place, the gentleman there comes on when you're on the Columbia and Snake River up in the state of Washington.
The other part that's great is, again, what's included. So we talked about shore excursions, we talked about drinks. If you've ever gone on a ship and had to pay for Wi-Fi, one of the things is we're in the United States, so your cell phone does work, but when you're traveling up and down, it can be a little spotty. And what I love is that they actually have Wi-Fi free, and you can connect to it.
Yes, Wi-Fi is included. If you've ever been on an ocean cruise and you had to purchase your Wi-Fi, you know what a wonderful value this is. And of course, for those booking the suite level, we have Commodore and River Butler services. The Commodore is basically upon arrival, you'll have probably a bottle of champagne and some fruit in the stateroom, and they will bring you canopies before dinner and serve it to you out on your balcony or at your table in your stateroom. That's suite level. And then the Butler services come and do your laundry if you want them to, and escort you. That's on the Queen. They'll escort you to your private booth at the Grand Saloon for the show.
So then for all of us mere mortals, what I love is that they take such great care of you. And part of that cleaning is that they're doing full sanitation of your room while you're out on tour doing the different things each day. So you are having multiple times where it's complete cleaning, and you can read all about that in the book. But their staff is just so hardworking, and it really pays off. And then I told you about the pilot house. It's unbelievable how they are able to maneuver these ships. So of course they have the big wheel in the back, but they also have isopods. These things are little like blowers on the bottom of the ship. There's 4 of them, and so they can actually turn that ship in a full circle on like a dime. I told you, for those that were on in the beginning, we showed you a little video. Last year I was on the ship and they actually had the first race of steamships, paddle wheelers, in something like 15 years. And so we were on the Queen, the Duchess, so one of the other vessels, and the Cincinnati Belle were the 3 that squared off. And of course, now you have the paddle wheel and you have these other parts of the ship, and our captain decided he was not going to go down. The Queen had to win. And so even though everybody else cheated at one point in time, one started early, one decided he would turn around before we got to the mark, we actually, using that great technology in those little, in that picture by the screens, it looks almost like a knob that can go in a full circle. He actually was able to bring us around so quickly that we were able to catch up to those cheaters and surpass all of them. So the technology on these ships are really, really great. Though they may look a little bit older, there's nothing old about the technology that they're using. So really, really neat.
Names, yeah, right?
Yep. And so just a quick reminder of some of these. I know now we've thrown a lot of information out to you, but I want you to get a feel. So on the Queen, we do have 4 different itineraries, including the fully escorted trip that we have available. We have, of course, the Empress, right? So the Pacific Northwest, and 3 different options that you can have, and you can find this all right on our website. And of course, we also have the brand new American Countess, including that Chicago to St. Louis. What I love about this is you get the city up north, but you do go past Hannibal on this itinerary. So you really get that wonderful Mark Twain feeling and experience of being at the river. And then, of course, Louisville to New Orleans, you kind of get the best of all kinds of worlds. In Louisville, you have Louisville Slugger, you have Muhammad Ali Museum, the Fraser Museum, some of the best. If you're a wine lover, that Pacific Northwest is great, but if you like a little bit of Kentucky whiskey, there is more opportunity to have a little whiskey here and there along that trip, which was pretty darn fun just to have some tastings and a lot of art. There's wonderful art museums on that itinerary, so really you can't go wrong. They're all wonderful products. And so what I want to do is have Donna just kind of talk a little bit about what do we do next. So now you've seen the product, maybe you want to get a little bit more information, you're ready to go. So Donna, if you don't mind, I'm going to have you just kind of jump on, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second, or do you want me to keep this slide up?
You can leave it up there. That's no problem. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Liz. That was awesome, you guys. So anyway, I want to say thank you everyone for joining, first of all. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces that I've had the pleasure to travel with as well. My first Mississippi River cruise, Brett was reminding everybody, but was my first anniversary with my husband 25 years ago. So I was on Upper Mississippi, and we did St. Louis to St. Paul, and it was so much fun, I tell you. So I've done that itinerary 2 times. And it was really great. So anyway, if you are looking for more information, if you want to talk, it's simple. You just call us at the ship shop and you ask for Donna, myself, or Barb, and we'll be glad to help you. I think, you know, what sets us apart in this industry is our service, to be honest. I mean, I've been with the company now 34 years, and, you know, we like to make your trip, you know, custom, talk to you, decide what type of stateroom you would like to, you know, to have, what maybe dietary, requirements you have, or any other special things. We customize your trip to suit you. And like Liz mentioned, we're happy to help you book those premium tours or anything else that you need for us to do. We also will discuss with you the all-important travel protection coverage, which we strongly recommend when you travel, that you protect yourself. And we have policies that will cover you for cancellation for medical reasons. And we have also just added a new policy, which we call cancel for any reason, or CFAR insurance, that if you have to cancel for a non-medical reason, you can cancel and get your 75% of your money back and still have that medical coverage to protect you in full. So we have lots of options, and it can be confusing. So that's what we're here for, and we will go over each, that with each person. So credit cards, typically for deposits, or a check if you'd prefer. We also have email, which is simply my first name, or Barbara at friendshiptours.net. That goes for everybody in the office. So email us questions. If anybody has any questions today, certainly put them up on the chat, and we can try to answer those for you today. But we
Donna, I do see one question that's been asked a bunch, which is about dress code. I don't know, Liz, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, we actually have a casual dress code. We refer to it as country club casual, but really what it comes down to is there's just no jeans and sneakers in the dining room in the evening. Throughout the day, you're outside touring, or you're riding a bicycle, or you're walking, whatever you're comfortable in, good walking shoes, just no jeans and sneakers. I recommend a black pair of slacks and a nice top for both the men and the women. That'll bring you through.
Excellent. So if people want to put in last minute questions, we'll go ahead and take any of those. I know we're just about at the end of our time for sharing. Now, for those, because you've stayed to the end, we really appreciate it. We do have something very, very special that we want to offer. Donna, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as a special thank you for joining us today, if you would like to book and deposit on a cabin by July 8th, you will receive a $50 per person. American Queen is a Steamboat company is graciously collaborating with us on this, and we'd like to offer you $50 per person onboard credit to use on your cruise. So that's kind of fun. And for those of you that don't know about our new Friendship Tours fan club, you have to check that out on our website as well. It's under More Than Tours. You also receive an additional onboard credit if you join our fan club. So lots of fun things going on here. You guys got to check out for sure. But I miss everyone, and I hope to talk to some of you very soon and get you on your way to an awesome adventure on the river.
And so Donna was great about getting to the next part. So for many of you, I see in the chat that lots of people are saying, I'm not quite ready to travel yet. And I understand that for sure. So we've actually done some different things at Friendship Tours to try to help One, hopefully today, even though we haven't had the messages on, we aren't actually talking, interacting. For those that joined us last week for our live event, we are doing different options where we actually open up what's called Zoom rooms, and you have a chance to actually connect with other people. And so you can learn a little bit more about some of our virtual tours and things in the near future. But for those that say, hey, you know, I am ready to try to reconnect or do something, if you're not a Zoom expert, which I know all of you are because you've already been on our More Than Tours page, because Friendship Tours, what we learned, it's so much more than tours. What people love, and you know, many of you, my mother started Friendship Tours, and Friendship Tours got its name from when she was a kid. She traveled to Europe with a group of Girl Scouts. They fell in love with travel, but they had friendships that lasted her entire life. And those friendships through travel, that's actually how Friendship Tours was named. Well, what we found is that it's not just travel, it's actually friendships in general. And one of the things that we've worked really hard in this time where so many people are isolated is trying to find ways for people to connect. So one is through things like today, although I know today wasn't extremely interactive, but we do have lots of different ways. So the More Than Tours that they were talking about, we have armchair touring. We actually have events like we did last week, which are live events where we do this interaction part of it. And soon you'll see different parts that are going to be about our virtual tours. If you like today and you want to help support us during this hard time in travel, we would love it. And what we've done is we've put together a couple options. So one is this wonderful fan club. And as part of our fan club, you get all kinds of different things that are unique in opportunities to connect with people. You get a discount on our wonderful store that we just opened up. But Donna, you also get a benefit, right, when it comes to cruising.
Yes, you get a $25 onboard credit for your cruise. And we have a couple of other questions in the chat. Some people were asking about the cost on shore excursions on American Queen. So I just want to jump back in real quick.
Yeah.
Hop on, hop off tours that you're offered in each of the ports that you visit are included in the cost of your tour. There are no additional charges for those hop on, hop off. The only additional cost would be for the premium tours. And we do have that one included premium tour at the beginning, and all of the rest are additional. And we can actually provide the information on the cost on those. They're located on the website. We can give you that information. People are asking about groups. Any number of people constitute a group. So if you have any more details, any more questions on groups, certainly reach out to me directly. That's my specialty, of course. We can make a flyer for you to present to your group and get you on your way. And so there's little things that we can do to customize that for you. We'll even come out when the time is right and do a presentation at your in your area so that you can have your friends join us. So just to answer a couple of those quick questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a little bit about some of those things. If you haven't been on our website for a while, friendshiptours.net, there are all kinds of content that you can actually access on your own time that give you things to do. So if you've been at home and you've been with each other just too long, there's all kinds of opportunities to see another face. So I know I got back from Australia and New Zealand March 13th with a group of 25. It was the longest Friday, the 13th ever. But since then, we quarantined, my wife and I, together. We did 15 days. Then we did all the time everybody else has done. So maybe you're ready to see somebody else. Well, these are opportunities that you can click on and see some other things as well as connect. Some of our wonderful performers have done special things that they taped for us. So we invite you, when you get a chance, go on to friendshiptours.net and take a visit to More Than Tours, because it's all about those connections. So we really do appreciate your time today, and we will finish just simply again by sharing our thank you to you for coming today. Have a great day. If there are any other questions, you certainly can put those up and we will answer them. If you need to get in touch with us, you certainly call our office, Friendship Tours, 860-243-1630, and we are there. You'll see our hours listed on the website. And again, thank you so much for your time today. Have a great day. Liz, thank you for taking the opportunity and sharing all this great information with us.
Well, thank you. We've had a long time partnership, and we really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank
you.
all of you for staying. I know you're all on the call still, and we really appreciate it. So have a great day, and we'll look forward to seeing you on one of our events soon.